mute. Okay, can you hear us now? Amanda? Hello? George? Hello?
I can hear you.
Oh,
Yeah, I can.
okay.
I can hear you.
All right, thank you very much. All right.
Just in case.
Just in case. All right, cool. I'll say give people about a minute to get on because they're streaming late.
Not a problem.
Oh, cool. I don't think you're gonna need to use this.
No, we didn't do any flies.
All right. I'm just gonna take a few of my pictures. I'm just gonna text them the link again. So are you guys busy?
Yes. Can't you tell by how many circles I have under my eyes?
We're very busy. That's good.
Yeah,
That's good.
that is a good
Yeah.
thing. It's very good.
Yeah, I have an email I need to pass on to you guys. I'm gonna talk to him first. He's a veteran and he has a business, so he's looking for 8 acres. Yeah. Let's see.
Tell you what, with
I guess it's gonna build something on it. It wasn't clear, that's why I wanna talk to him, because my friend just passed on his email, the way he sent it to her. So I'm like, oh, I don't know. So he's a cutler and starting a mobile edge sharpening business. And I'm looking for 8 or better acres in between Atlanta and Athens. So my business is mobile, and that's about it so far. So probe.
so it's a mobile business, so it's not gonna be.
Right. So probe. Oh, there you are, guys. We're gonna get started. We will get started shortly. We're just giving people another minute to jump on, and you know we honor the people who are on time. So Kathy and Janet will get to it in a half a minute. Kathy went to get some water, so she'll be right back. So this is the class that you guys have been asking for, because you always run to me and go, oh, I've got this guy who wants to buy a $10 million building, and can you help me with it? No, I can't. Because this is my profession, and for 20 years I've used my profession to feed kids and send them through college. So I'm not about to do a commercial deal because I am not trained. So I would not be serving my clients, and I would not be serving the office, right? So all the questions you guys have, they're gonna tell you how they got started. We all started out as residential, and they put the work in to go take classes, to go get trained, and all the designations. So they're gonna talk about that. So please meet my friends, Kathy and Janet. And both Kathy and Janet started here in this room, where I had fun beating them up. I think one of them did not like me too much.
Oh, I don't know who that is.
I know who it is, because I'm you know how I get when I'm in this room. So one of the two of them did not like me too much, and we've gotten past that, because they know their heart is in the right place. So now we're great.
You remember more than you guys who got the meeting.
I know. I'm not sure.
So I say that to say this, seriously, they wanted to get into the commercial space and they put in the work. And it has not been peaches and cream all the time. I just asked them, I said, how are you doing now? And they're doing fabulous. So they have paid the price. So please listen to what they have to say. And I'm gonna go get you all that table.
Okay.
So they can see you
Sure.
guys. Some help me.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well,
morning, everybody. Janet and I are happy to be here today, and we got a whole table here. We didn't realize this was gonna be a video.
Yes, we're on video, so we're gonna push this out of the way. I'm gonna push this. So you guys can be comfy. And then we put the room back together.
Okay,
All right.
good.
So you guys good now?
Yeah, good.
All right.
Yes, just briefly, I'm Kathy Radler, and I met Janet here at KW Atlanta North in the Ignite class. We sat very close to one another and just had a great relationship through Ignite, and then we shared an office space. I started in residential real estate, and about 2.5, 3 years in, we were sharing this office, and Janet was going to switch to commercial, which she can share her side of that story, and encouraged me to join her, and was willing to guide me through the process of commercial real estate because she has some experience. So that's how I got started. Did do the residential piece first, and did the residential piece first, and now I'm in commercial with Janet. Janet, you want to share how you started?
Yep, so I'm Janet. I originally got my real estate license to do healthcare commercial real estate. I had a background in medical device sales and met somebody at a trade show that was with a healthcare real estate company, and I made a huge leap, went through the training, got my license, and worked with that broker for probably about 8 months, and they were in another state. They were in Colorado. And then I left that broker, came to Keller Williams. And so initially when I came to Keller Williams, I was doing residential, but my heart was always still with commercial. I had a background before that working in a corporate setting for Post Properties, which is a huge multifamily group here in Atlanta that has since been acquired. But it was a bootstrap company back in the 70s that started from nothing here in this market and ultimately became a national company and went public. So I was exposed to the whole development process from the very beginning, where you're negotiating the deal, getting it under contract, going through the development pieces of design and groundbreaking, and then from there to lease up. So I had that exposure, so I have a good understanding of the process because I've been on the other side and seen how things were done, and that's where my heart was. So eventually, I went back from residential over to the commercial side, as Kathy said, and then we started doing commercial together. So that sort of brings us up to today, and we've been doing it, what, 3 years now?
Almost 3 years, yeah.
So for 3 years now, we've been doing commercial for KW. We still do some residential stuff. Kathy more so me, except that now when we do residential stuff, we're typically doing it for clients that are our commercial clients or have come to us through a commercial client.
Mhm.
We don't go out and look for new residential business. So we still have the ability to serve our clients with that, but commercial is a market that you can't just dip your toe in it. You've got to commit. You've got to get some training behind you. Every deal is vastly different. No two deals, even in residential, can be very different, but you multiply that times 10 in the commercial world.
So we were asked to talk about how to succeed in commercial real estate, and commercial real estate is very similar to residential in that it is what we warmly call a contact sport. You have to be building relationships daily, whether they're current relationships or new relationships, referrals, whether it's from a residential agent here in the office or a referral from a client that we have. So it's something that if you're in residential now, that will carry through to your commercial experience. But first thing you should have is a business plan. If you're going to jump into the commercial side, and get the training, know what you're getting into. As Janet said, that's where it's different from residential. All our residential deals are different, but along the same lines. In commercial, they're vastly different. So you really should go in with a plan. Unless they shut that door. Jenny, you want to come up defining the market?
Yeah, so one of the things that makes commercial very different too is that there are many different verticals. So you've got the office market, you've got an industrial market, you've got retail, you've got land, you've got hotel. So there are a lot of choices, and it's really important as soon as you can, and it's hard to do in the beginning because you don't necessarily know where your interest lies, but it's really important to get to a place where you can identify what you want your niche and your focus to be. If you're in a smaller market outside of Atlanta, like I'm originally from Savannah, so I'll use that as an example. That's a market where you might be more of a generalist as a commercial agent, because there may not be enough opportunity in one particular vertical to support your career if you're going to stay just within that market. But when you're in a metro area like we are here in Atlanta, it really becomes critical to be careful not to become that generalist, because you're never going to become an expert in a particular niche. And if you really want to serve your client, it's the same as in residential. Our job is to be an expert at what we do. So, and so as soon as you identify which area interests you the most, then that's the area that you really want to expand your knowledge. You want to understand what's that market doing. Let's say, for example, we do a lot of land opportunities. We work with a lot of multifamily and single family developers, whether it's attached or detached single family homes. We're also doing single family built for rent now. So it's important to understand what's happening in each one of those areas, because the land opportunity for those developers is going to be very different than the multifamily guy versus the single family guy. So you've got to understand that the price changes. The higher the density, the bigger the price that can be paid. The lower the density, the lower the price. You got to be able to understand the zoning piece that goes with that. So what's the property currently zoned for? And in understanding the current zoning, what's the likelihood that it can be rezoned to suit one of our developer clients? So these are things that we have to look at and consider every day when we're pursuing opportunities, or if we're just trying to uncover new land opportunities to present to these guys that we've developed relationships with. And in each vertical is different. And as you can imagine, now the industrial market is just on fire because of COVID. So we've kind of broadened our reach into that a little bit, but it's learning a whole new animal. It is, what's driving that market? What are the logistics? Because logistics is all part of industrial. It's getting the merchandise from point A to point B.
Yeah, knowing your market and defining your type of commercial real estate that you're interested in, and I encourage you to, if you're interested in commercial, to pick something that interests you, because you do have to do. And if you're a tenant or a landlord rep, it's very similar to buying and selling, to being on the listing side or a buyer side, very similar. A lot of folks, the leasing side, feel like that's a great opportunity because, you've got a friend that wants to start a business, or they want to open up a store somewhere, for a salon or something like that. But it's a lot of work, and we've been working on a piece. It's actually my neighbor, and I said to Janet, we'll help this guy out because we are doing a lot of land deals, but this is a lease. Y'all, this is a $1,400 a month lease for a small business that has just taken up, I can't even tell you how many hours I have spent on this particular months and hours on this particular deal, just because of the of this deal. So anyway, all that to say is just pick a lane and understand it. if you want to get into commercial. It's just a little insight. And something else you need to do is you need to know the market and your competition in terms of, I do a lot of, we're working a lot in Gwinnett right now and in Cobb County. And we know who has the land deals. We know Dan Fowler here in our office is a great land guy. And he's been a great resource for us, but earn their respect and understand what makes you different from them, and market that and serve your client well. It's just really important to understand that little piece of it too, because there aren't as many commercial brokers as there are residential brokers, that's for sure. We want to talk a little about clients. And knowing the
Yeah,
client.
let me add to what you just said, that because knowing your competition, one thing about commercial that tends to be very different is you'll hear that it's thought of as the wild, wild west. Because commercial agents are often looking for opportunities that they'll get wind of and they will slide in on the deal. It happens all the time. It is much more cutthroat. And part of the reason is because in the residential world, you always have a brokerage agreement in place. So the relationship between the agent and the client is protected by that brokerage agreement. And in commercial, that's not necessarily the case. And so while we're careful to have brokerage agreements in place for that reason, there are a lot of commercial agents that don't, and they will address the brokerage agreement later in the process. And because that's a practice, it makes it easier for agents to slip in when they get wind of something. And basically disrupt the whole transaction. So that's a bad thing. So that's a really important side note. It is much more cutthroat. The competition can be really, really ugly.
It can be, or it can be
Or it
just,
can be really good.
yeah, I mean, it just,
Yeah.
and develop relationships with someone that might send you a referral for the Marietta area if they're over in Gwinnett. That happened, where someone said, I think you can serve this client better. It's all, again, about relationship.
Yeah. So what was the thing?
Think about your client. We're talking about clients.
Yeah, so defining your client, this is something that's very similar to residential. You really want to be careful to make sure that you're utilizing your time efficiently, and that starts with vetting your client. Make sure that your client understands what's involved in what they're about to take on. As Kathy said, we've gotten a lot of new startup stuff that tends to look for lease opportunities. And we've had to turn people away. We tend to turn people away now because if it's a really small deal, unless there's some future opportunity and there's some additional value that comes from the relationship, it takes the same amount of time to work on a small deal as it does a big deal. And so
like a buyer of a $60,000 house versus a buyer for a $300,000 house,
right,
you're going to be spending maybe even more time with the $60,000 house. I mean, what are the odds? That's what the commission
it all becomes very relative. And so managing your time, and you do that by vetting your client, making sure that if it's a client that's looking to buy something, but they're a startup business, have they even talked to a mortgage company? Have they even talked to a commercial lender to find out if they can get finance? That's number one. Number two, helping them to understand that if it's a lease scenario, that the landlord's going to look for a personal guarantee. They don't care that it's your business. They want to know that if your business goes under and you've got a 3-year lease in place, that he's still going to get paid or she's still going to get paid. So a lot of people don't know these things coming into it. It's all the pains of growing in whatever it is that you're trying to do. So know what's important, vet your client, know that they understand the process that is ahead. Also understand how committed they are to the process, what's their motivation, and really trying to get clear about, do you think they have the ability to get to the finish line?
Something really important in commercial real estate, as it is in residential, is your database. and having a good CRM. I mean, that's the foundation of your business is your CRM. And when you join KW Commercial, part of your fees goes to it's a CRM called Client Look, and you have to live and breathe by, and that's been something that's been a struggle for me, and I have it works with that much better than I do, and it's training yourself. It's training yourself to rely on that CRM. And so thankfully, like I said, we have Client Look as part of our commercial fee. And so, you know, when I was doing residential, it was a lot of my sphere and making those cold calls to my sphere. Well, your CRM is totally different. And there was a gentleman, we had a call today. He said in the 6 months of 2020, the last 6 months of 2020, he made 10,000 cold calls, 10,000. Very impressive. And now his business in 2021, he was a new agent, young man. It's just starting to build now. But 10,000 calls, that's a lot of phone calls. And that's KW training too. I mean, that goes back to sitting in this room and making your calls. But you know, it's really important.
I would say I have a background in sales before I came into this. As I mentioned, I did medical device sales and then I did software dental sales that followed that. So being in a sales position, your CRM is your lifeline. It allows you to keep track of who you've touched. It allows you to keep track of who you need to circle back with, who has a need, so that when the fit comes up, because it often does later down the road, that you've got them in your database and you can go back and find them and close a deal because you had that system in place. And the more calls you make, the better your conversion rate will become. When I was in sales, we had to make 25 calls a day, so 100 calls a week. Is that right? 125. Thank you. Save my math with that. 125 calls a week. And at the end of that, we had to track how many of those turned into warm leads and how many of those turned into opportunities. And then when you get to the point where you've actually got an opportunity that's created, the typical rule of thumb is that a third of your business is going to close because of your skill. Another third of your business will close because you were dealing with somebody that was just determined they were going to make a decision, they were committed. And a third of your business is going to fall off. So if you want to do 10 transactions, expect that 30% of that is just automatically going to fall out because of whether it's an unforeseen thing or whether it's because maybe things weren't vetted entirely appropriate or the person just changes their mind. So understanding those ratios is really important, and that's why we really try to rely on our CRM.
Yeah, and there's a lot, y'all, and I've talked to some of you on the phone, I know, and we've had conversations, and there's a lot to commercial real estate. It's very doable. There's great support here. We have a director in the Peachtree Dunwoody office who is phenomenal, Charlie Lockwood. He's been doing this a really long time. There's a new program coming out of California that is great for folks starting. So there's a lot that you can access through KW Commercial. But I want to open it up. If you all have any questions, we would love, there's so much more, but want to see what you're here for and what your questions might be. So anybody have any questions, or y'all in here have any questions?
A lot. And then some others could be already spoken, so.
Wait, does anybody have any questions for us today?
Yeah.
So if I want, I guess I'll go.
Yeah. Hi, this is George.
Go.
Go ahead, George.
It's George Crumley. I got a couple questions. I registered with KW Commercial earlier in the year, and I talked to a few people about commercial real estate, buildings and things like that. So I'm just kind of getting my feet wet. So, and I've reached out to Dave Fowler a couple of times. I've talked to him. So I guess what I'm trying to understand is what is the real process? What are the steps once you find a client? Do we, because you've talked about networking, you've talked about resources. I guess that's what I need to do is how do I better plug myself into these resources so that obviously I'm new. So if I find a deal, I understand how complex it is. So how I get someone to guide me through this process with this client so that I kind of do and learn through the whole process.
Perfect. That was my question.
Oh,
Said it.
You and
Thank
Nina
you.
have the same question. It's a good question.
I mean, I think my first thought is Charlie, is reaching out to Charlie Lockwood.
So he says he's registered. You registered as a KW commercial agent?
Yeah, I have that. I have access to CoStar, and I've gone through that
So you're paid.
that training, and I've kind of familiarized myself with how to find buildings. I've taken some courses on the outside to understand how you analyze cost bases and things like that. So I've got a general understanding, and so if I talk to someone, I kind of understand you know how you analyze a deal. But what I have not seen is the internal process. Just like if I sell a residential property, I have a choice. I can either do the paperwork myself, or I can use contract recording and yeah, contract to close. I'm sorry, and pay them to do it. But I haven't heard, seen, or what's the paperwork process. And that's usually my hang up, even on the residential side, is not obtaining the customer and getting to the closing tab. It's the paperwork in between, and that's what I'm trying to understand, that quagmire as far as how do I go through the steps to make sure I'm satisfying everything on the KW side, that I have all the paperwork and those kind of things taken care of.
Yeah, sure.
So first of all, what area of commercial do you think you want to pursue? Because that drives some of the answers that follow. Would it be land? Would it be retail?
No, it's building.
Office?
It's buildings. I've got
Office building?
yeah. Well, yeah, I've got two clients I'm talking to. One is wanting to start a business where they're doing event, like they want an event space. And then I've got another client that's looking to actually purchase something for urgent care, an urgent care facility. So those are the two clients that I'm working right now. So to answer your question, but the way I operate is more on a referral basis. So through my contacts, these people have been referred to me, and I'm so, when you ask me the question, what particular area, I get that, but I guess what I'm trying to do is work my referral more so than just saying I'm only doing this or doing that. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Is that too broad, too general?
Even if you're working referral, at some point, it's very broad, very general. So,
Right.
but you've answered the question with the two examples that you gave. So let's focus on those. So on the urgent care piece, well, first of all, if it's an office building, you need to decide if it's a buyer, a seller, or if this is tenant or landlord representation, because those are all very different things. If it's a buyer situation, then it sounds like you've got access to CoStar. You're able to go out and research property that would be available in the market where your client wants to be. That's a little cleaner and more straightforward transaction, because now, if that was a lease scenario, then there are things you've got to be aware of. For example, what are the costs? Because there are different types of leases. There's a net, there's a triple. Familiarize yourself with leasing terms. There's effective date of the lease, there's commencement date, Those things define when your client starts paying, is their free rent. So I would look, Charlie Lockwood is always going to be your best resource in commercial. That's his job locally. But for you to help yourself, I would probably go on the internet. There are some books out there that you can put your hands on that will focus on specific niches and roles or representation. I would look at that. Then on the other piece that you talked about, which is healthcare. Yeah.
One comment too on that, George, in addition to Charlie and books, KW Commercial is growing their training base, and it was supposed to be this month. They're announcing some training for new agents as well as agents that have been doing this business for years and years and need to get back to the basics. So watch for that as well. There's someone out of the started a program, and I think they've built off of that. She's sort of now, that's why I talked to you about, and I don't know why she's not returning phone calls, but I think KW Commercial is growing that training base on that.
Yeah, there are some things that are coming.
And the Atlanta Commercial Board is another place, George, that you might, are you a member of the Atlanta Commercial Board?
I am not.
Okay, good, because that's another place where you can look for, obviously, I've done that before.
Yeah, so a lot of the contracts are available through Atlanta Commercial Board. Don't use a GAR form to do a commercial transaction. It's just dangerous. They're not written as well. Use the forms from Atlanta Commercial Board, at least until you get more familiar with what you're doing and you can decide when it's okay to use a GAR form. Number one, if you present a GAR form to a true commercial agent, it's just going to scream residential. And if you want commercial agents to recognize you as a commercial agent, that's a big no. The other piece of your question, you talked about the urgent care. These things, that's a situation that's going to get into zoning. So familiarize yourself with zoning and some of the Municodes. You can go online to do that. They tend to be fairly consistent from one municipality to the other, but there are some differences. So you could just pick one, start reading some stuff, start looking at what's available online so you can sort of understand. There's a future land use map that is on every website for every municipality. They don't always work well.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to call the zoning office and get some help. But that will also tell you not just what you're dealing with the current zoning, but it'll tell you what the future zoning is. Sometimes when you're dealing with healthcare though, the issue where there has to be a certificate of need that's issued by the state. One of those or not, I think for an urgent care, if you can look at what's within the area and you can find something that's already zoned, that's pretty easy, but the chances of that are pretty slim. It just always seems like a lot of what we do in our transactions is going to involve some amount of rezoning. So
Just painful and long.
it is painful and long, that's exactly right. So I would Google certificate of need for healthcare in Georgia. Get yourself familiar with that. Healthcare is a very specialized niche. So it's not that you can't do it, but there's actually good financial reward in that arena. That can be a very hard market to tap into because MDs are very well protected by their gatekeeper. So if you're looking for new business, as you mentioned, and you're looking for it in the healthcare world, you're looking to connect with doctors, that's going to be a big challenge for you. Just know that going into it, because I'm getting to the right decision maker. The other thing is they try to run their businesses when they should be practicing medicine. And the good doctors usually will have an office manager person that's running the business. And they'll be the ones to make the decision for a new office or for what's happening with their leases, with their existing locations. So you may get to the office manager, and assuming that's the right decision maker, then you could do okay in healthcare. But otherwise, it will be a real uphill climb. If you want to focus more on healthcare, if you focus on the vet world and the dental world and orthodontic, and maybe even some of your specialty care or physicians that work off of what I call disposable income. That's like a dermatologist. Dermatologists do a lot of things that get processed through insurance, but the reality is a lot of what they do is self-pay. The clients that are coming to get injections for fillers or some kind of cosmetic work that's not covered by insurance, those physicians are very so you could focus some of your efforts on those sectors of healthcare. Does that answer your question?
Well, yes and no.
So what-
Okay. So I get
what's that?
I get the marketing part. Okay. And I've already started doing research and reading books, and I have two mentors that have been selling real estate for a while, not through KW, but that's their field, commercial real estate. So I get that and how to build a base, but
Commercial,
excuse me.
George,
Yeah.
you said they've been selling real estate for a while. Are we talking about commercial agents?
Yeah, these are commercial
Okay.
folks. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So, but my question is, I'm trying to understand the KW way, the process. So what I'm hearing is I should use the forms from American Commercial Board. I'm sorry, Atlanta Commercial Board, and then also
Right.
is Charlie Lockwood is the person that's going to help guide me through the KW system as far as how to get everything processed and things like that. Is that what I'm understanding?
That's correct. So like when you have a question, the people here in our office, most often, because even if we go to them, this is our experience, I don't know commercial. Yeah, so if you have a commercial question, Charlie Lockwood is the person that you really need to call.
And actually, I suggest, George, since you joined KW Commercial, I would meet, Janet and I met with Charlie very early on, like the first month we were commercial agents, called him, took him to lunch to find out exactly what you're talking about. He can send you a lot of information. He sends us, we'll call him and say, Charlie, do you have a form about, I don't know, I can't think of anything. We haven't called him as much lately as we did early on, but
Right.
and he has a call every other Wednesday that you are welcome as a commercial agent to join. You should be on an email list so that you get the Zoom call. Are you getting those, George?
I am not. It seems like when I first joined and I spoke with Dan Fowler, he had mentioned something like that, but I get I get stuff from CoStar, but I have not seen anything as far as that type of training. Do you have either Charlie's email or his phone
I
number?
was just gonna say, George, just tell, what is your email address, and I'll send you an email.
It's GH Crumley at kwcommercial.com.
At kwcommercial.com.
Uh-huh.
All right, I'll send you an email.
Okay.
Yeah, J.H. Crumley.
G
okay.
is in George. GH Crumley, CRUMLEY.
What else? Does anybody else have? Yep, got you. I'll make sure I got it.
Thank you.
I'm glad you asked, George. But you know, I mean, if I didn't give you Charlie is the go-to person for a newer agent for sure, because he has been doing this for 40 plus years. He has this call every other Wednesday. Like this morning, we talked about business plans. I think there are 25 KW commercial agents on the call, and they do a half and have a need at the end, much like we do in residential, where I've got, 50 acres trying to sell up in Canton, and, anybody have someone, so, it's a good call to be on, and you'll learn something just from listening.
There's good nuggets.
That's what I'm looking
Yeah.
for.
Yeah.
That answers my
Yeah.
question right there. That's what I'm
Okay.
looking for.
Good,
Yeah.
good.
Thank
I'll
you
send
very
an email.
much.
Yeah.
Great.
But do you have to be registered as a commercial agent to
If you
join
want,
him or anything?
No, he'll join the call. I would send a note to Charlie, tell him you're interested in commercial real estate and to get on this call and invite for the call. So that I would definitely do that. So I'll send it to Jeff also.
Yes.
Yeah. How about anybody else? Anybody else have any questions?
I remember the client that I talked to, how we, same client, I'm able to now at least distance the commercial from the residential. I'm able to convince her, because, I had to write down all the expenses that's gonna come towards, making the clinic. She's a doctor, so she wants to make a clinic. And she wanted to start off as a mixed use, like clinic in the front and little house in the back. But it was seeming very complicated to do that. So after I wrote it down, the survey and this and the environment, all that's included in the medical facility, we have distanced that. So at this point now, we're looking for land just for a house, and she wants to put a modular house. You guys know that?
yeah,
Yeah. What is your opinion on that, first of all? Is it too custom made? It'll be hurting the appreciation?
Oh, I don't know enough research. I know what they are, but I'm not familiar with.
it's not too custom made. Actually, it's
Less
less, it's a
custom, yeah.
prefab house. It's
Right.
the opposite.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it
So,
just puts it into kit and, they put it all together and all that.
yeah,
You'd have to have, in that situation, I don't know if it's gonna devalue you, you're gonna wanna look at the future value of that land for an investment piece versus I don't know, the house,
Right.
it's more the land. How is the investment for the land?
So the land will be residential now that we have distanced ourselves from commercial. So the land, we're looking for, I'm obviously only, restricted to the residential FMLS. Would you guys have more access to other lands that are available?
yes.
So I can reach out to you guys to help me find land for her, just for residential?
No,
Not for residential.
Not for residential.
we have commercial resources. We have the same residential resource that you have.
Okay.
But we have additional commercial resource that we pay for. That is, two of them actually, that are expensive databases
Mhm.
that give us a lot broader exposure and reach, to do our searches with.
But that's
But
only
that's-
for commercial.
That's commercial.
Yeah. So
So-
whatever I'm seeing land, that's all there is out there.
No,
For residential, I mean.
yes.
Yes,
residential.
okay, for residential, I'm good then, whatever I see is
Yeah.
all there is.
Yeah,
But-
now we may see larger land opportunities for residential.
Okay,
But that's usually gonna be something a developer's interested in. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know how much land she's looking for.
1 acre.
Yeah, that's at Georgia.
Yeah,
MLS.
so that's good, but also for commercial that she wants, I guess that I cannot find, like, zone potential, commercial and all that, I see that.
Yeah, and there is actually a commercial category on FMLS.
Yes.
Those listings are much fewer
Yeah,
than what we have access, because
Of course.
FMLS is not a true commercial database.
right,
And if it's listed there, there's a good chance it's a residential agent doing a commercial listing. So, so we still look at FMLS and Georgia MLS if we need something small like that. But, most stuff we're using CoStar and Crexy to look for. So for you, if you're looking for an acre, what we have is gonna be zoned commercial. Let's go back to your question though about the modular home piece, because you were asking for an opinion about that.
yes,
The opinion piece probably is moot, because it really comes down to what your client is trying to accomplish. And is she asking for your opinion on a modular home piece, or does she have a specific reason that she's pointed in the direction of a modular home?
She's not asking for my opinion.
Okay,
That's what she's in love with.
and why is she in love with it, if you asked her that? What's attractive about
Something
that?
just, first, the quickness of it,
Okay,
that she thinks
so
that,
timing,
yeah, she can get it, and she likes the barn look. She showed me some pictures that this is the look that she wants. She wants it very serene and a piece of land somewhere.
so it's cheaper,
Yeah.
Is-
she's
is that
all
an
about
issue?
that.
okay, so there you go, so whatever we think about it, doesn't matter,
It don't matter,
right?
right?
So, the other thing with a modular home, if it's a mobile modular home and not a prefab home that's being placed on a slab, because there are modular homes like that. If it's a mobile home, it's something that she can move off the property at a later date, she could sell it and actually build what she wants on the property. Is that her goal? Maybe, maybe not, I don't know, but that's something else to,
She wants to settle there forever.
does she want to live in that home forever? Or does she see a
The modular home
Right.
that she's putting there,
Yeah,
she
Some
wants
people-
to.
yeah, because some people would do that as a temporary because it's a cheaper solution for today.
Right.
But then she owns the land, and 10 years from now, she may be in a good position to say, now I want a custom home, and she builds her custom home on that property,
Right.
and she sells the mobile home or modular home. And so, you know, did that answer your
Yes,
question?
yes.
Well, she's no longer a commercial client then.
No, she still is, but now that
This
we
is
have
a
distance,
residential.
yeah,
This is the
but now that
residential
we
piece.
distance,
Yeah, right.
yeah.
Which just goes back to our understanding your client
Yeah.
and your client's needs and talking them through that, you know, talking them through the pieces. And we love referrals and all day long, but we learned to ask those questions ahead of time, you know, of the referring agent. What do you know about your client? Do they have a business plan? If they're opening a restaurant, how big of a restaurant? How many tables? What's the menu going to look like? Because if they're leasing, which is most likely, that's what the landlord's going to want to know. They want to see your personal financial statements. Have you contacted, you know, as Janet said, a lender? All those pieces before we even get involved. You know, there are 20 steps. That's just in finding the space is in the middle. There's a lot to be done ahead of time.
Yeah.
And any other
I have,
questions?
if nobody's
I
there,
have one.
TV land.
Yes, Allison?
This is Allison. How are y'all? Thank you both so much. I'm listening today not because I'm personally interested in getting into commercial real estate, but because I wanted to develop a kind of a base knowledge of what you do, so that I can intelligently refer people to you when I come across people looking for a commercial agent. And so that piggybacks on your previous statements. What would be some preliminary vetting or gathering of information that I might do before referring someone to you? And what would be a client that you two personally would be interested in receiving versus not receiving? Or would you rather I give you any commercial option that I have and let you determine that?
That's a great question, and you and I have chatted before, and I really appreciate that. You know, we've learned to ask more questions on the front end, and I think we always welcome referrals, and we've learned what to ask you. So I think most definitely when you just think of your residential experience is what does your client, what are their needs, you know, getting down to exactly what their needs are. And if they're not specific enough, they need to start asking themselves some questions and get that, you know, information. Finances are really important. A financial plan, talking with a lender. And if you don't have one, we have some commercial.
And find that residential agents that send over referrals are encountering people that are dealing with startups. So that's a big piece of this is this a client that has this idea and their business is a startup that they're looking to pursue? Those are the ones that we don't necessarily pursue. And let me back up something. Who said something about event space? Was that George?
George, yeah.
So let's go back, because this will be a really good example. Finding event space for somebody, we just have started saying no. Because the chances of that they can get a liquor license, because an event space has got to have a liquor license. If it's too close to a church, having enough parking to handle an event, that's usually a problem. Everybody wants an event space. And so if there was opportunity out there for those, we'd be all over it, but that's an example of something that, so if it's a startup, and I would say, if you want to inquire about that before you refer it over, because then you can probably know that the chances of us feeling like it's something we can help or spend our time on go down greatly.
So what are the questions that
So-
to ask the potential client?
Are you a startup? Have you been in business before?
Do you have a business plan?
Do you have a business plan?
Do you find?
Do you have a commercial
startup
banker?
capital?
Do you have a commercial banker?
Ask about their capital. What is, do they have investors? Is this something that they've been saving? Ask about their financial health.
Are they prepared to sign a personal financial guarantee? Because they're gonna say, what? What are you talking about?
If someone signs a 3-year lease and they have to know that they are responsible for that total lease value. If something happens, if the economy tanks and, no one is interested in having weddings anymore and they have an event space that they're leasing for 3 years and everybody's in quarantine, they still owe that lease.
That's right.
Rent every month.
The landlord is not gonna be the one to feel sorry for them, if you will,
Yeah,
right?
okay.
Because the landlord loses too. So, yeah, that's a big deal. There was something else I was gonna add. If they're looking to sign a lease and they're not a buyer, are they looking at a minimum of a 3-year lease? It needs to be a minimum 3-year lease. At
Most
minimum.
landlords won't consider anything less than that. And that's what to us, it just is really very hard to find a landlord willing to do that.
Yeah. So I would say for us, that's one of the cutoffs, is if it's not a minimum of a 3-year lease, we're not touching it.
Oh. Good answer.
We don't touch it.
If it's not 3 years.
Yeah.
Is there a price too, rental price?
Yeah, but that gets a little
Not
too
much.
deep.
Yeah, not quite as much.
We could figure
Because
that
I
out.
have a
but-
skincare lady looking to lease Norcross, Alpharetta area.
Mhm.
I don't know if she wants to do 3-year lease though.
Yeah, and that's just it.
Yeah.
It's gonna be very difficult to find a landlord willing to have someone move in their space and take it off the market for less than a 3-year lease.
Yeah.
And the other thing, and a few of you I've spoken with and explained, the very first deal that Janet and I worked on, and a lot of you have already heard this story, was a referral from a darling agent here in this office that we were
love.
friends with, and it was his client. We took it on. Janet drove this person around for two days in Gwinnett, and Janet had not capped at the time. Her commission was less than the referral commission was for that gentleman that gave us the referral. It was a very small.
It was less than $300.
It was brutal.
Oh,
Yeah.
gosh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so just know
Take your
that
time.
unless a lease is a big number, our commission is not very large. The commission I was telling you about on my neighbor, it'll be less than $1,500. And I've driven up to Suwanee, Georgia, probably 6 times, and it's, it's leases are tough.
Yeah.
They can be, Janet always says to me, be careful, because I'm like, I'm never doing another lease, but she's like, now be careful.
Leases can be very lucrative.
Yeah.
Very lucrative, doing the right leases. And this goes back to George. If you're interested in medical and you want to do landlord or tenant representation, typical, because you're talking about a minimum of a 5-year lease, usually a 10-year lease with 1 or 2 options to extend.
And you get paid on those options,
Yeah.
and you get paid on the total value of that lease.
Right.
Or if it's for 3 years. Is it registrable?
It depends.
Or
No.
one,
No,
No, we do not.
We do not, because we don't accept that.
It can happen.
There are agents out there
Yeah.
that will take a monthly payment, but
$30.
Yeah, or even $150 monthly payment
Yeah.
really, we say to the landlord, if I bring you a tenant, I expect to get paid because you're gonna sue the tenant if they default.
yeah.
So that's on you. We delivered a service.
Just pay one fee and you're walking
Yeah, we
away,
get paid
you're
now.
done.
But it can happen. Janet is correct. We
Yeah.
would get, we have yet to do that, but it
Yeah.
can. It depends on,
But generally it's one time payment and you.
Yes, unless we're talking about a Publix lease or something much bigger of that nature. That's a different story. Then it's negotiable
Okay.
because it's a lot of money.
because of a lot of money. Yeah. So.
But good question, Allison. That was a good one.
Thank you for the answer.
Anybody else?
I have a question, Kathy. Hi, thank you both of you. This is Asit Joshi.
Hi, Austin.
Hi, look, I'm a new agent, and focus was on the housing in the residential market, but by virtue of my warm social circle, I have more requests about buyers who are looking to buy commercial properties and such, businesses properties and such. So there is good information I received today from what you said and what George asked. Need to do the KW commercial registration, right? That's the first step.
Yep, if you go to Melissa here in our office, she can set you up and get everything started for you.
Okay, that sounds good. So I will do that. Now, as I mentioned, there are some requests they have made. Some are really, kind of warm, meaning, they do need, it's a serious a business they're looking for. Actually, they were the buyers visited Georgia from Florida about a couple of weeks back. We saw, but I'm still, I have no clue. I was just helping them because I know them and they know I'm in the real estate. But other than that, we have no, I'm just looking in the dark actually. How do we go about this, at least for the people who are really serious and they need to find something in near future? Is there any help, meaning, can I just completely refer and also get some, knowledge out of it? Or how do I go about this?
Well, I will tell you that Janet and I are really pretty kind souls, and we are here. We are KW agents. Nina and I have chatted, Allison and I have chatted, but based on our business workload, it's really difficult for us, and we couldn't. I couldn't. Janet mentors me, and I'm very blessed by that. But I could not mentor someone. So I guess my suggestion to you is, if you have someone that has immediate needs, you need to serve them well, and your best bet is to refer them. And that's just straight up. I mean, if it was residential and you were just brand new and it was somebody that had a complicated residential, I might say the same. It's a little different with commercial because we don't have daily training here in the office like we do for residential, and come into the lead gen room and learn, we just don't. But you can, like we're telling George, you can join KW Commercial and access training. And when you're a KW, there's a lot of KW Commercial website, just videos and what have you that you can access. But that's not going to help your client today. So we are definitely here for you. If you have a referral, we can chat with you about that. But we can't mentor someone. Now, if you contact Charlie, who we've referred to, there are agents that are sort of they've been in the business for 30 years, they're sort of quieting down, they might be a good mentor for you. There are gentlemen, I don't know if there are too many women that are taking mentors yet, but there are a few of the gentlemen that I know of that might take a mentor. So you have options for sure, but if you have someone with an immediate need, you're probably best to refer them at this point.
Okay, so yeah, sure. What I'll do is I'll connect offline later. And also, if you can just add my email, and when you send email to George, you can CC it to me, that would be great. It's my first name dot last name, which is asit.joshi@kw.com.
When I send these emails, that y'all respond, receive something, so I know you got it. Otherwise, I'll get with Billy and make sure.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Correct. Sure.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, raise. So I have one guy looking for retail space. He wants to put his fast signs, fast signs.
Yeah.
Put his shop maybe, may not be, and then lease out one or two. So looking for a small plaza, but his budget's really small, 1.5. And how would could I like refer to you, but I also want to be sort of involved, so I learn.
We don't do that.
It's the same question. I mean,
Same
it's the
thing.
same thing.
So best to just refer and walk
I wish
away.
we did have the time, and I mean, and I'm being straight up honest with y'all. I have learned an incredible amount from Janet, and because she had the commercial basis, she's got developer connections. We're very blessed. I would be asking the same questions that you all are. It's finding, it's getting involved, awkward, getting involved, getting on these meetings, and they're going to start doing them in person, so you can go and meet these folks, which is what we did initially, back in 2019. Involved like you do here, being here.
It's the big thing about commercial, we pay a lot more as a commercial agent. Our monthly fee is significantly higher because the databases are more expensive. And that's where the mercy of those companies. So we're really busy with our own stuff. It's really hard to take on mentoring somebody else, and
It wouldn't be fair.
it would not be fair. And frankly, it just starts to get kind of convoluted, because if you want to do commercial, you should probably commit to it and get yourself set up with a mentor. And I would encourage, and I know Kathy agrees with this, anybody that's thinking about it, not to try and do commercial on your own. Either get yourself a mentor or get yourself really connected to Charlie, so that you have that resource, because you will need it. And Charlie has even shared stories with us. We had a call probably a year ago. I don't remember the specifics of the detail, but there was a residential agent that did a commercial transaction. It was a great transaction financially, but it closed. And guess what? There was a suit. And she lost every bit of her commission.
Yep.
So it is a
She wasn't
different.
protected.
She was not
She
protected.
didn't know what she was doing.
So it's better. Yeah. And you don't know what you'll know. And I say, I'm a person, I like to dive in regardless of that, but I am incredibly careful about making sure that I'm educating myself when there's a challenge that comes up, or there's something that I'm not familiar with that's new to me, because you've got to really dig and make sure that you're doing right by yourself and your client. I mean, we talk a lot about the client, but it's also protecting ourselves.
I agree.
And the transactions are much bigger, guys. So some of them are smaller, but you have the potential to do much bigger transactions, but that comes with a bigger liability.
Yeah, Charlie told us today in our phone call about a residential agent that referred something to Charlie, and he and his he's got an associate that I think he's mentoring, but they paid the agent a $10,000 referral fee, and she did nothing but referred it to them, and she knew that she couldn't handle it well and handle it right, and they did, so. But refer to us before you refer to Charlie, just saying.
Yeah.
I'm exactly
I
that.
have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
How do you know if commercial real estate would be a good fit for you?
You don't until you go take classes.
Yeah, that's a good question, and I will tell you this. Really good point, and I'm quoting Charlie, very much money, and I knew that was gonna happen. And Charlie will say, you should have 6 months of your expenses and savings before you jump into commercial. That's what Charlie says.
Can I say a year?
Yeah, I was about
Yeah.
to. A year.
6 months,
I-
you
I
got
told
you,
6
yeah.
months of money like that.
Yeah.
Forget 6 months.
Well,
A year.
here's
Yeah.
the thing, guys, you're considered a rookie in commercial for the first 3 years.
Yes, you are.
That says a lot about
Mhm.
the commercial market, because there's so much more to know.
So massive.
So,
Yeah.
and I would even go a step farther on your question. If you're trying to figure out if it's something for you, what's your personality? Think about that, because are you comfortable sitting in a room with executives? That's what we do. We're meeting with executive vice presidents and talking about their needs and how can we help them, and not everybody's comfortable with that. Is that something that you're okay with? Do you think you'd go in there and be able to present yourself in a manner that's going to be received well, or are you gonna go in there very timid? Because people read that. And there's a difference in being confident and being arrogant, so I wanna be really clear about that. There's nothing wrong with not knowing, and there's nothing wrong with knowing when to say, I don't know the answer, but I will find out and get back to you. So
Safer.
it's safer, yeah. So, I think people respect that, and if that's your personality, then it may be something you wanna think about. If you're more comfortable with things that are a little bit slower, a little more, I don't even wanna say laid back, maybe safer, less risk, because the pain for us is when we have a deal that falls apart. It's a big deal.
And it happens.
And it's happened to us. We had a multi-million-dollar deal that fell apart. We chased it for a year and a half after that. Came back around and we're under contract. So you've got to have really thick skin. That's the other piece. So if that's your personality, then you should think about it.
And passion, and what you what you want to do, and because it's different, it's a different animal than residential. It's fun, it's challenging, it's exciting,
It is.
and we're glad to be here. We
Thank you.
appreciate you.
Thank you, we appreciate you. Thank you so much.
you.
Yeah, I hope you guys got a lot of your questions answered.
I
And,
have 30
I'm gonna
second
give you my
question
phone
if it's
number.
okay.
Okay,
So what is the, real quick, what is the commission rate, and is it negotiable in
It's all
commercial?
over the map, and everything is negotiable.
and it's so funny because I see you don't know, and if you don't ask, shame on you, because that's one thing that Janet always says, did you get the commission? It's not published anywhere typically, and you have to
Right.
say, what's the commission on this opportunity? And then you better get it in writing as well.
And I would say the range, to answer your question, depending on the size of the deal, honestly, if it's a huge deal, it could be as little as 1%.
But 1% of 20 million is not bad.
Right.
Right.
But a more consistent range is anywhere from 3 to as much as 10%. The 10% is really kind of going away. That commission rate has been changing over time. Clients have become more savvy about their business transactions and don't want to pay 10% commission, so.
And on a lease deal, typically it's what they call first and four. So if it's first month, whatever that first month base rent is, say it's $1,400, plus 4% of the total lease.
Of the remaining term, not
Or the remaining, yeah, of the
minus the
remaining.
first month.
Mhm. And so if it's a 3-year deal, for example, that one I was telling you about, Janet and I, that I've been working on forever, that we'll walk with each 1,500, it's a first and 4, but by the time it's all done, I think the total 1,500. So it was 1,476, which is the first month's rent, plus 4% of the balance of that lease. And it's like $3,400 total. Janet and I will split it.
And that's on the tenant side.
Yeah.
If you're on the landlord side, it's not uncommon that the landlord representative gets a lower commission
Yeah.
rate. They may get the first, part of the first month and 2%.
It just depends.
Yeah, it's part of the Wild West.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you.
You guys can call the front office for Janet Futch or Kathy Radler. They'll give you our phone number, because I know we don't have it written up. So just call Billy. He'll give you our numbers.
Janet, what's your last name, please?
Futch, Futch.
Thanks.
Sure.
Thank y'all.
Thank you
Appreciate
so
it.
much. Yeah,
Thank you.
Appreciate it. I appreciate it so much.
Think I know.
And she set time for another,
Yeah.
so the new batch comes in.
Right.
Then it's like, we wanna do commercial because it has millions of dollars. And I'm like, oh, yeah, so I just don't know.
It looks glamorous,
It's,
but you gotta have a,
thick
you
skin.
gotta have a thick skin and a tough stomach.
Yeah.
I have both.
And the older guys in the business telling you, you don't know about what
Yeah.
you're talking about, and you need to get out.
That's right.
So I have no idea how good they are.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure, well, go ahead. Thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
I'll send you, I could have sworn I sent you Charlie's. I always try to send Charlie.
You sent me that LA lady who.
Yeah, for the
ironing
training.
out one her time.
Alicia.
It's all right.
Yeah, but Charlie's our director. I'll send him. It's really good.
Nice guy too.
But you're right, I'm too afraid to get in trouble with commercial man, so.
Well, it's risky, and you don't want to do that to your client either.
Yeah.
So,
Before you even watch it.
and we've reached out to Charlie too, early on, just a couple of our things, we do have support, which is good.
And even then, every time we have something that we have to call him for and say, what do you think, Charlie, and because too, you always want to be careful where you're getting your advice from. Just like in the residential world, side by on the residential. It's bad.
Don't have COVID, I was coughing, it doesn't work out well, we're so afraid of a crash at the grandbaby this weekend. So
Yeah.
I'm on the tail end, but.
And my allergies are just
Yes.
It's next one because I feed them right.
Yeah.
And it's like that dry, especially now that it's
Oh,
dry.
I
It's
know.
that dry cough. Yeah. Well, usually it's free, this room
I
is
know.
free.
But if you ever need any floors cleaned up, please. Just to get in the door. Okay.
Or three.
Yeah, I will. For free. Yes, for free. Finally, good to meet you. Good to see you. Yes, good to meet you too. Bye, guys.
Oh, shoot.
Okay.
Sorry, let me log off, you guys. Yeah, you gotta come see for me before I.
So I'm